What's up, guys? Derek, moreplatesmoredates.com. Today we're going to be talking about a very interesting topic that came up on the Joe Rogan podcast, and I feel like the side of the red meat representation was not very well. I don't think he really knew what to respond to this point, and it was a very good point by Khan, the vegan doctor, or what they call him, but obviously both highly respected in their own fields, but Kresser, I feel like, kind of dropped the ball on this part. Basically, what Khan brought up was red meat increasing cancer risk.
Meat rich in methionine will activate mTOR and IGF-1. It is a very strong factor in aging. You want a low methionine diet.
Why does it beat the crap out of animal protein?
Because there's a 300 to 400% increase in cancer of those that diets concentrate on protein of animal source.
And Kresser's response was, there's no scientific research to support that it does that.
In terms of the quality of animal
I think death
versus
and cancer matter, Chris, and I know you
That's
know.
what I just said. They don't. There's no. The studies don't show that fresh meat increases the risk. Fresh red meat increase the risk of death and cancer and heart disease.
And you don't always need a study to show something that's a definitive physiological mechanism of action that occurs when there's a certain hormone. Basically, what Khan said is he said animal protein is less superior or it's worse than plant protein because it increases, has mTOR activation and increases IGF-1 levels. And that increases, causes aging faster and can, cause cancer. Kresser had no rebuttal except for, where's a study that shows that? But, okay, this is where things get complicated because, well, it's not really complicated, but basically it's where you have to weigh out what do you prioritize in your life. When you have red meat and you increase your IGF-1 levels via red meat consumption as opposed to having like vegan protein or whatever, you are going to cause more cell splicing. So basically what IGF-1 does is it's a hormone in the body that can cause abnormal cell growth to, not abnormal cell growth, but it can cause cells to split into two. This process is cell splicing. And basically this is something, if you have, existing cancer, then cell splicing is obviously something you don't want because when you have high IGF-1 levels, splicing of all cells in your body can result in cancerous cells splicing into you. Basically, let's just say you have one cancer cell and then you have a super high IGF-1 level and it splices, you now have two cancer cells and then those can splice and you have four cancer cells and so on and so forth. This process, while it can progress existing cancer, and there's arguments about, well, if you don't have existing cancer, then you're not at risk. But, what I've come to learn over the years is it's quite likely that you have some abnormal cell growth in your body from all like the ridiculously artificial synthetic things we take in throughout the day. I think it's pretty difficult to not have some abnormal cell growth in your body. And then it's just like dependent on how well your body handles that. And it's kind of like your own physiological responses to it. If it's going to develop into cancer down the line and how many of those cells you have to begin with. Basically anything that's going to expedite their growth or encourage them to get worse and, split and create new ones it's bad because it's going to progress potential cancer. Eventually, if you have enough cancerous cells that, build up and splice, you're going to have full-blown cancer. Does that mean that a slight IGF-1 boost from red meat is going to cause such a significant amount of greater cell splicing than vegan-based protein? Probably not in most cases, but it's like everything adds up. Would you want to do something knowing it could, everything from all factors? You have, a ton of I don't know, like you're out in the sun way too much, you don't use sunscreen, you do this, you do that, you put all these risk factors for potentially inducing cancer or making it worse into your system. It's all going to add up, right? It's a cumulative thing. It's not like you just did like one thing exactly that caused cancer a lot of the time, in my opinion. unless you're just genetically, that's your predisposition. So basically, the literal function of IGF-1 will make you at a greater risk for cancer if you have, increased IGF-1 levels. And that's what Kahn mentioned. He said, do you want a high IGF-1 level? To Kresser, and Kresser, had no response ready for that, because I feel like that was an area he wasn't ready to. He's not super well versed in, obviously.
Chris, you want a low IGF-1 or a high IGF-1? You want a low IGF-1, just say it.
I want to live a long, healthy life.
Yeah,
I don't want to be obsessing over individual markers. I want to live a long, healthy life.
You like a lot of markers when it comes to low carb studies. You want a low IGF-1 for survival. The science is strong. This is LA science, so we're not making this stuff up. Anyways, methionine and leucine in meat raises IGF-1, and at least periodically take a break.
And Kahn responded saying, I do not want a high IGF-1 level, which is why I don't want to consume proteins that increase my IGF-1, because IGF-1 has a negative influence on cancer cell growth. That's true. But what you have to understand too is IGF-1 isn't just a negative hormone in the body. It has positive benefits that influence, muscular recovery and splicing muscle cells. So bodybuilders in particular, they want high IGF-1 levels. The reason being, if you splice new cells, muscle cells you can create hypertrophy in, you can basically increase your genetic potential, or like the potential of how big and muscular you can get, essentially, because you're creating literal new cells to induce hypertrophy in via, like weight training and proper eating, anabolic use, and whatever you do. You have to weigh out what you prioritize. Like, do you want to risk, accelerated cancer growth, or do you want to, get jacked? And it's like, everyone has their own, like, does that mean having a super high IGF-1 level is going to cause cancer in everyone? Like, definitely not. There's so many bodybuilders are dropping dead from cardiovascular disease, not from cancer. I can't think of one bodybuilder off the top of my head that's died from cancer. I'm sure there are some, but bodybuilders literally pin themselves with exogenous human growth hormone in order to crank their IGF-1 up. They pin themselves with literal IGF-1 to increase cell splicing. They literally put like a stupidly super physiological amount of this hormone into their body on purpose to achieve a multiple fold level of cell splicing. And a lot of them, every single one I know of, has not got cancer from it. Does that mean that, everyone's not going to get cancer from it? Obviously not. I'm sure some people probably will. But the fact remains that these guys are arguing about which one is better, like it's black and white. And the fact of the matter is, it depends on what is going to, benefit your life the most. Do you care more about athletic things? Do you care more about ensuring all possible avenues of potential cancer acceleration are not present? It's a stupid argument, in my opinion, because it's like red meat is going to be superior for, muscular recovery. But then on the other side of the spectrum, you're going to have the people who say, well, it ages you and it causes, cancer. It doesn't cause cancer on its own. It's not like you just eat like a steak and then you just ate cancer. If you have existing cancer cells, an increase in IGF-1 can, accelerate the growth of that. And that's just a fact. You don't need a clinical study to prove that. That's just how the hormone works. You have to decide at the end of the day what, your priorities are. And I don't think there should be a demonization of the red meat because it increases your IGF-1 level, because it's like, that's a good thing to a lot of people. And a lot of people go out of their way to achieve that. So there's no such thing as like the optimal diet. I feel like these people watching these debates and these podcasts are looking for like the holy grail diet that's gonna like, what's like the healthiest thing that everyone can do that's like the best thing. And they're just like wanting to see one guy totally crush the other guy's, theories. And you can't, because everyone's gonna have their own, things that they need in their life. So it's like, if you have a guy who literally has cancer, should he be eating a ton of red meat that's gonna like crank his IGF-1 up? No, probably not. He should have probably be on like a keto diet, not have any red meat whatsoever, and use things that crash his IGF on purpose. But then you have another guy who's like, all he cares about is, muscle and getting bigger and athletic performance and strength, and he's not concerned about cancer risk, and he quite likely won't get cancer from having red meat. So he has as much as he wants, and it helps him in his goals. You have to weigh it out for your own personal individual preferences. So, like I mentioned. So anyways, if you found this informative, you want more content like this, diving into the science behind bodybuilding, health, longevity, lifestyle related stuff in general for men, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, stay up to date when I post new videos. Check me out at moreplatesmoredates.com. Talk to you guys soon.